Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction of our spiritual master Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're also paying our humble Dandavat Pranam to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada for offering us this wonderful commentary and translation of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're also following the instruction of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, who said if we cannot understand something about Radharani within the 18,000 verses of Bhagavatam, then our study has been wasted. So we're praying to Srimati Radharani. Yadi seva vanchitasyama yasya kripaya vayam labema sarvam prapnuma prayojanam damni Shri Bhagavat Pade Krishna sambandhi sarvam cha yadi na jani mahe tutam ashtadashasu sahasreshu shlokanam Bhagavat oktishu radharanim na vindamatada Nishphalam Bhagavat Adhyayanam Radhikaya Kripam Vina Vyartasyat Sarva Parishrama. If we are cheated out of serving that personality whose mercy awards us everything we need, including residence in the Lord's holy Dham and all things connected to Krishna, and if we cannot understand or discover Radharani within the 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, then our study of Srimad Bhagavatam has been pointless. Without the mercy of Srimati Radharani, all our efforts are in vain. Dandavat Pranam Umadevi.
Hare Krishna Dandavat.
So we are continuing our reading from Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order. Chapter 28, Purañjana becomes a woman in the next life. Text 1. Narada Uvacha Sanika Bhaya Namnoye Barhishmandishta Karina Prajvara Kala Kanyabhyam Vichir or Avanim Imam. The great sage Narada continued, My dear King Prachinabarhisat, afterward the king of the Yavanas, whose name is fear itself, as well as Prajvara, Kalakanya and his soldiers began to travel all over the world. Purport. The period of life just prior to death is certainly very dangerous, because usually at this time people are attacked by the weakness of old age, as well as many kinds of disease. The diseases that attack the body are compared here to soldiers. These soldiers are not ordinary soldiers, for they are guided by the king of the Yavanas, who acts as their commander-in-chief. The word Dishta Karina indicates that he is their commander. When a man is young, he does not care for old age, but enjoys sex to the best of his satisfaction, not knowing that at the end of life, his sexual indulgence will bring on various diseases, which so much disturb the body, one will pray for immediate death. The more one enjoys sex during youth, the more he suffers in old age. Text 2. Ta ekada tu rabhasa Purañjana purim nripa Rudhor bhauma bhogadyam Jarat panhaga palitam. Once the dangerous soldiers attacked the city of Purañjana with great force. Although the city was full of paraphernalia for sense gratification, it was being protected by the old serpent. Purport. As one's body engages in sense gratification, it becomes weaker and weaker daily. Finally, the vital force becomes so weak that it is herein compared to a weak serpent. The life air has already been compared to the serpent. When the vital force within the body becomes weak, the body itself also becomes weak. At such a time, death symptoms, that is, the dangerous soldiers of Death's superintendent Yamaraj, begin to attack very severely. According to the Vedic system, before coming to such a stage, one should leave home and take sannyas to preach the message of God for the duration of life. However, if one sits at home and is served by his beloved wife and children, he certainly becomes weaker and weaker due to sense gratification. When death finally comes, one leaves the body devoid of spiritual assets. At the present time, even the oldest man in the family does not leave home, being attracted by wife, children, money, opulence, dwelling, etc. Thus, at the end of life, one worries about how his wife will be protected and how she will manage the great family responsibilities. In this way, a man usually thinks of his wife before death. According to Bhagavad Gita 8.6, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam chajatyante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sadha tadbhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. At the end of life, a person thinks of what he has done throughout his whole life. Thus he gets another body, dehantara, according to his thoughts and desires at the end of life. One overly addicted to life at home naturally thinks of his beloved wife at the end of life. Consequently, in the next life he gets the body of a woman, and he also acquires the results of his pious or impious activities. In this chapter, the acceptance of a woman's body by King Purañjana will be thoroughly explained. Text 3. Kala kanyapi bhubhuje Purañjana purambalat Vihabhi bhuta purusha Sadhyo nisharatam iyat. Gradually, Kalakanya, with the help of dangerous soldiers, attacked all the inhabitants of Purañjana's city, and thus rendered them useless for all purposes. Purport. At the fag end of life, when the invalidity of old age attacks a man, his body becomes useless for all purposes. Therefore, Vedic training dictates that when a man is in his boyhood, he should be trained in the process of brahmachari, that is, he should be completely engaged in the service of the Lord and should not in any way associate with women. When the boy becomes a young man, he marries between the ages of 20 and 25. When he is married at the right age, he can immediately beget strong, healthy sons. Now, female descendants are increasing because young men are very weak sexually. A male child will be born if the husband is sexually stronger than the wife. But if the female is stronger, a female child will be born. Thus, it is essential to practice the system of brahmacharya if one wishes to beget a male child when one is married. When one reaches the age of 50, he should give up family life. At that time, one's child should be grown up so that the father can leave the family responsibilities to him. The husband and wife may then go abroad to live a retired life and travel to different places of pilgrimage. When both the husband and wife lose their attachment for family and home, the wife returns home to live under the care of her grown-up children and remain aloof from family affairs. The husband then takes sannyas to render some service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the perfect system of civilization. The human form of life is especially meant for God realization. If one is unable to take the process of Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life, he must be trained to accept these principles at the fag end of life. Unfortunately, there is no training even in childhood, nor can one give up this family life even at the end. This is the situation with the city of Purañjana, figuratively described in these verses. Text 4. Tayo pabhu jamanam vai Yavana sarvato disham, Varbhi pravisya subrisham, Pradhayam shakalam purim. When Kalakanya, the daughter of time, attacked the body, the dangerous soldiers of the king of the Yavanas entered the city through different gates. Then they began to give severe trouble to all citizens. Purport. The body has 9 gates, the 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, mouth, rectum, and genitals. When one is harassed by the invalidity of old age, various diseases manifest at the gates of the body. For example, the eyes become so dim that one requires spectacles, and the ears become too weak to hear directly, and therefore one requires a hearing aid. The nostrils are blocked by mucus, and one has to always sniff in a medicinal bottle containing ammonia. Similarly, the mouth is too weak to chew and requires false teeth. The rectum also gives one's trouble, and the evacuation process becomes difficult. Sometimes one has to take enemas and sometimes use a surgical nozzle to accelerate the passing of urine. In this way, the city of Purañjana was attacked at various gates by the soldiers. Thus, in old age, all the gates of the body are blocked by so many diseases, and one has to take help from so many medicines and surgical appliances. Text 5. Tasyam prapidyamanam yam abhimani Purañjana avhaporu vidam stapan kutumbi mamatakula. When the city was thus endangered by the soldiers and Kalakanya, King Purañjana, being overly absorbed in affection for his family, was placed in difficulty by the attack of Yavanaraj and Kalakanya. Purport. When we refer to the body, we include the external gross body with its various limbs, as well as the mind, intelligence, and ego. In old age, these all become weak, and when they are attacked by different diseases, the proprietor of the body, the living soul, becomes very sad at not being able to use the field of activities properly. In Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly explained that the living entity is the proprietor of this body, Kshetragya, and the body is the field of activities, Kshetra. When a field is overgrown with thorns and weeds, it becomes very difficult for the owner to work it. That is the position of the spirit soul when the body itself becomes a burden due to disease. Extra burdens are placed on the body in the form of anxiety and general deterioration of bodily functions. Text 6. Kanyo pagudho nashta shri Kripano Vishayatmaka Nastha Pragyo Hritaisvaryo Gandharva Yavanar Balat. When King Purañjana was embraced by Kalakanya, he gradually lost all his beauty. Having been too much addicted to sex, he became very poor in intelligence and lost all his opulence. Being bereft of all possessions, he was conquered forcibly by the Gandharvas and the Yavanas. Purport. When a person is attacked by the invalidity of old age and is still addicted to sense gratification, he gradually loses all his personal beauty, intelligence, and good possessions. He thus cannot resist the forceful attack of the daughter of time. Text 7. Vishirnam svapurim viksha pratikulan anhadritan putran pautranugamatyan jayam cha gata sohridam. King Purañjana then saw that everything in his own town was scattered and that his sons, grandsons, servants, and ministers were all gradually opposing him. He also noted that his wife was becoming cold and indifferent. Purport. When one becomes an invalid, his senses and organs are weakened. In other words, they are no longer under one's control. The sense and sense objects then begin to oppose him. When a person is in a distressed condition, even his family members, his sons, grandsons, and wife, become disrespectful. They no longer are under the command of the master of the house. Just as we wish to use our senses for sense gratification, the senses also require strength from the body in reciprocation. A man keeps a family for enjoyment, and similarly, family members demand enjoyment from the head of the family. When they do not receive sufficient money from him, they grow disinterested and ignore his commands or desires. This is all due to one's being a kripana, miser. This word kripana, used in the 6th verse, is in opposition to the word brahmana. In the human form of life, one should become a brahmana, which means that one should understand the constitutional position of the absolute truth, Brahman, and engage in his service as a Vaishnava. We get this facility in the human form of life, but if we do not properly utilize this opportunity, we become a kripana, a miser. A miser is one who gets money but does not spend it properly. This human form of life is especially meant for understanding Brahman, for becoming a brahmana, and if we do not utilize it properly, we remain a kripana. We can actually see that when one has money but does not spend it, he remains a miser and is never happy. Similarly, when one's intelligence is spoiled due to sense gratification, he remains a miser throughout his life. Text 8. Atmanam kanyaya grastam panchalan aridushitan duranta chintam apano na lebhe tat pratikriyam. When King Purañjana saw that all his family members, relatives, followers, servants, secretaries, and everyone else had turned against him, he certainly became very anxious, but he could not counteract the situation because he was thoroughly overwhelmed by Kalakanya. Purport. When a person becomes weak from the attack of old age, the family members, servants, and secretaries do not care for him. He is then unable to counteract this. Thus he becomes more and more anxious and laments his frightful condition. Text 9. Kaman abila sandino yatayamams chakanyaya vigatatma gati sneha putradharams chalalayan. The objects of enjoyment became stale by the influence of Kalakanya. Due to the continuance of his lusty desires, King Purañjana became very poor in everything. Thus he did not understand the aim of life. He was still very affectionate toward his wife and children, and he worried about maintaining them. Purport. This is exactly the position of present civilization. Everyone is engaged in maintaining the body, home, and family. Consequently, everyone becomes confused at the end of life. Spiritual life and the goal of human life are. In a civilization of sense gratification, there cannot be spiritual life because a person thinks only of this life. Although the next life is a fact, no information is given about it. And we will end our reading here for today. And we'll continue from text 10 on Wednesday. On Monday. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Guru Dev, Srila Acharya Dev Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees, Sama Bhaktivedanta Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai. Ganga Mayi Yamuna Mayi Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai, Sham Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi, Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagi Ki Jai, Scientific Sankirtan Yagi Ki Jai, Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Hari
Hari
Bol,
Bol.
Jai Shrimati Umadevi Dasi Ki Jai.
Sripad Krishna Keshav Prabhu Ki Jai.
Jai Gurudev.
Good night.
Dhanyavad Didi.
Yeah.